Welcome everybody to Beyond Procurement by Powerweave, a podcast where we invite reputed and experienced procurement leaders, ask them questions beyond procurement, beyond savings, and beyond efficiency. Today we have a renowned name. We have Megha Singh, Director of Procurement Transformation at Micron Technology. Megha brings over 15 years of experience leading large scale procurement and digital transformation programs across companies like Novartis, Walmart, and now Micron. She has led global initiatives impacting over $2 billion in unmanaged spend and has an amazing track record of turning complex procurement systems into scalable AI enabled engines. And in today's conversation, we'll go deeper into what it really means when somebody says AI ready in procurement and what leaders often overlook along the way. So Megha, great to have you here. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Deepak. Really excited to be here and looking forward to the conversations that we'll be having.
Great. So let's start with your current role at Micron. What does your procurement mandate look like, especially across your upstream and downstream functions?
Sure. So I would say that, I lead the Center for Excellence and the digital transformation at Micron with a focus on how we use technology to optimize both strategic sourcing, upstream and transactional buying, and the downstream related to compliance. My team works on everything from supplier onboarding to spot buys to contract lifecycle automations to spend analytics, as well as the management of global transformation projects. That's my kitty. The team is spread across geographies. So it's a full stack mandate. And we're focusing currently on AI implementation for a lot of upstream projects.
Great. That's great to know, Megha. And yes, we are going to come there when you speak about AI. Everything wants to know more about what AI can do, and we are definitely going to touch upon that. You recently attended the Gartner Symposium and represented Micron there. So, could you share some of your key takeaways from the event, maybe specifically around AI in procurement?
Yeah. First of all, the Gartner Symposium, it was great, and Micron was called out in the symposium for the autonomous sourcing, how we are at the front end in implementing the autonomous sourcing for talent spend. And one thing that stood out is how fast the conversation is shifting from what is AI to how I can deploy it. And I think every person in the symposium was very much interested on how we can deploy it. Even though we were represented by Micron on representing autonomous sourcing and how we are using Blue Yonder and implementing innovation in our supply chain processes. But I think the focus remained on how the real theme remained on AI and on agentic AI. And AI isn't magic; it's a math, and I think it's a maths plus data plus processes. I think everything has to be tied up to ensure that companies are skipping the hard part. And one thing that we realized that having the clean data foundation and rethinking about workflows and processes, it's really critical even before we are thinking of having that AI in place. So at Micron, we have been seeing success only when these things are tackled at the fundamentals first. So I think cleaning the fundamentals, having the right fundamentals in place is really, really important. So the symposium summary was that if you have to implement an AI, you need to have a clean data. And obviously, everyone needs to start thinking on that front.
Great. That's a more practical approach, and that defines like AI is not magic. There's a lot of hard work and fundamental work that needs to go into there. Taking from that, what are some of the promising use cases that you have seen or worked or that you believe where AI can really boost the overall impact for procurement?
For AI, there are many use cases, where we can actually use in procurement, but because I have to restrict it to only two, and I'll take an example from both upstream and downstream so that, our listeners can use the advantage even if they are upstreams or downstream, and it's beneficial for them. So let's talk about upstream first. In the supplier onboarding, we can use AI to validate the company credentials, flag compliance risks, and having this due diligence in place. I think AI can really help that in saving lots of time. Sometimes it takes weeks to have those compliance checks in place. We can have plotted LLM models and also auto draft RFPs using historical templates. So I think that's another thing that we can use it upstreams. Not to forget on having autonomous sourcing in place for managing one's tail spends. So that's on the upstream. On the downstream of it, I think I can start take an example of PO approvals, right? A lot of human interventions currently are involved in doing those PO approvals. We can deploy AI engine that learns from your past approvals and flags whatever are the anomalies. For example, if a buyer is consistently overriding a policy that's implemented in the organization, those are the checks that you can actually implement it in downstream. And further down, beyond procurement, it also helps in AP, in the invoice reconciliation. A lot of human efforts are needed, especially when we go downstream. So I think from contract management to PO approvals to invoicing, I think it's everywhere we can actually use AI.
So some 4 or 5 prominent use cases is that you just highlighted, and how matured or how ready are procurement teams in your observation or in your experience to implement this is what I would like to understand.
It's a very, very tricky question. I would say you asked, Deepak, and you kind of put me on the spot. See, I worked with a lot of organizations. You mentioned 15 years, but it is now 19 years for me. And I've been with varied industries for a longer time. Especially with Walmart, I was almost there for 10 years. When with Novartis, I was like there for 4 years. And all these are established, good, old practices, legacy organizations. They are doing great. And, I'm very happy to see that they are actually adopting a lot of technology and AI. But honestly, most are still in the early phases, I would say, if I leave my previous organizations apart. But I look at, I talk to other organizations, especially in some of the conferences where I meet my industry colleagues to understand what they are doing in their procurement processes in terms of innovation and AI implementation. I get to see that they are still in the early phases, maybe experimenting with say latest on chatbots, or maybe doing some analytical dashboards. But maturity isn't just tech, right? It's about whether AI insights are trusted and actioned, and I think that it will take a lot of time, but without that trust, adoption will fail. But the good part is people and organizations are thinking towards it. They have taken that first step. There is a lot of resistance internally, but I think we are on the right path. Not sure if I answered your questions or was it a political one.
No, but that was a sound one, which I'm sure our audience would like to hear. Yeah. So now let's go to the helpful side. And if a company decides to bring in AI in procurement, where should they realistically start?
Again, yeah, I think you're taking all my knowledge. Okay, and again, a very interesting question. How and where should they start? Everybody wants to implement AI, and there is a reason that they want to implement AI for fast tracking their processes, implementing, being there. But they're also thinking what I've observed that, a lot of organizations are struggling. Where should I start from? Okay, everybody wants to do it. We have CPOs go ahead on implementing AI, but they still struggle to find out how do I start. And with my experience, I think we need to actually start with where the real problem is. And it is our team members who know where the real problem exists. For example, we have a long tail spend leakage. That's a real problem, right? And then you ask, how can AI help, right? Usually, yes, but only after you have a clean and spend data, like, you have a defined thresholds, only then the AI can help. So it is definitely for you to understand where are the problems. For example, if there are problems in your invoicing area, and you need to understand where in the invoicing area are the problems, how can you automate, how can you have AI implement, because AI will be implemented only on cases where they have structured data in place. And anything that it does not have the data identified or the real previous problems identified as solutions, it will fail. So I think the organizations need to start looking at the downstream of procurement first, because that's where a lot of problems are. That's where a lot of human interventions are observed.
Got it. So you essentially highlighted a couple of foundational gaps like mindset, one of the key thing, then data, then process, and I'm sure the knowledge is always there. So
Yeah.
if I could probe you further, organizations that you have worked with, how did
Mhm.
you go about building this internal buying for an AI-led change?
I think, with the organizations that I've worked, I have been fortunate enough to be associated with teams wherein we have already a go ahead from the leadership teams to go and enable a lot of AI tools. To ask you, to answer your question, how did I go about it? So it is an outcome led for always, right? We framed it as, we want, for example, I'm just giving you giving you a quote like we want 25% faster onboarding, supplier onboarding, and here's how AI can help. Right, we also ran a side by side pilots, right? Manual processes versus AI assisted ones. To take an example of autonomous sourcing, right? We need to identify the tail spend wherein we have a lot of high value tail spend, and we just cannot implement AI solutions on wherein the tail spend is much lower than the investment we'll be making on the AI, right? So that's those are the things that you need to, the KPIs are identified, and also we need to see the business value that we are driving out of the problem is much higher than the investment that we would be making to implement AI. So I think that is, if that process is clear, and if that is clear, I think that's a good start.
Great. So you just shared an interesting story. Any fascinating AI case study, whether from Micron or Walmart or anything else that you have seen that you would like to share with the audience, so even they can understand what a rightly implemented AI can help them do.
Okay, I will not take the name of the organization, but I think I can call out two processes or where AI was implemented. Again, one was with a renowned organization again, and I don't want to give the names and specific on which organization implemented which AI and what are the platforms that they used. But one was on the downstream of again resolving the PR to PO processes, right? Reducing the workflows, having those PO approvals in place, faster contract management execution, ensuring the chatbots in place so that the executives do not have to go into the laptops to do those approvals, and it is just a click of a button. Even if it is even if they are on a vacation or taking the time off, they just do a click of a button and it is all done. Okay, so that's several of the examples that have been implemented, and I'll definitely not say which organization it was implemented for. And second is obviously helping the upstream of procurement, wherein we have a lot of sourcing managers, and we need to do a lot of negotiations and manage a lot of spend. That's where it's very critical to have the AI model developed to meet the need of the internal processes. And I think that's also where it has helped a lot in especially getting the RFPs in place, so that the CSMs do not waste a lot of time going and scouting for RFPs. They have the set standards, and the RFPs are fetched automatically. All that they need to do is they have like 5 sets of RFPs they have to analyze. Okay, that's when human intervention will come, but their manual efforts of drafting an email, sending a response, selecting the vendors, and asking them for a quote or an RFP, that's all taken care by an RFP. That's all taken care by an AI model. So yeah, I think those were enough examples, or do you want more?
No. Those were great ones, and I'm sure these are some of the areas where procurement teams can start looking at. imagine, and I really hope this happens. People listen to our, this session and they decide that, okay, they want to get started with AI and they want to evaluate and select the right partners or solutions to help them out. How would you recommend them evaluating a particular solution provider for this?
Okay. So basically, you're asking me a question on how do you want to evaluate the
Uh,
AI
yeah, a solution
providers,
provider or
solution
not
providers.
solution. Yes.
Okay. Again, I would say you need to have your checklist in place on, what are the AI models or AI tools that you want to develop for which processes. Uh, and that AI model should be explainable internally and it should tie up with your processes. We also need to they also need to ensure that they have the clean training data, right? If you are planning to have an AI revamp the process, you need to ensure that the data that you have is a clean data, because AI will not work on and messed up data. It has to be clean and sorted in a particular format. Uh, you also need to be ensuring that the data that you have is plugged into your ERP tools or not, right? And if it is plugged into ERP tools, whatever tools that the organization is using, it will be definitely worth it, and the business value driven out of the processes that are there in ERP would be much higher than those that are not. So I think if you do not have a ERP, which is a rarity right nowadays, it's organization should transform to getting into ERP first. And if they do have an ERP, they should also see how their AIs can be tied up to various ERPs that they have, integrating their various ERPs to ensure that the data is correlated. They also need to be able to factor in what would be the return on investment in the upcoming 1 year, and then not just 5 years, right? Because sometimes you develop an AI model and the return on investment that you receive in the first year would be much lower. Eventually, the organization adopts, and after 5 years, the targets change. Right, 5 years is a really long-term strategy, especially in the environment that we are living in. So I think these are the few things that you have to take into fact and have those discussion with the vendors on whatever models you're choosing for whichever processes.
Great. So that was some good advice, Megha. Now, the other side of it, are there any traps or common mistakes that you have seen procurement teams fall into when they try out such solutions, and what should they be aware of?
I think I can quickly. When you ask me about traps, I can quickly fall back on one of the use cases, wherein a lot of organizations immediately develop, and then the model, somehow starts failing eventually. And one classic example, I would say, implementing an AI chatbot without teaching the internal procurement language. Right. So, for example, the end user asks, what's our tail spend for Q1? And the reply comes, not tail spend, but they will read as tail spin, not recognized. Okay. Right. The model or the chatbot that you're implementing has to understand your procurement language. Right. There are a lot of terms that we use in procurement, and the model needs to develop and understand that new vocabulary. Right, it will be funny in the funny, it will sound funnier during the first few instances, but if you don't train your model to understand the vocabulary of procurement, it gets very frustrating to the users, and they want to understand something very quick, and the answer that they get would be really funny and way out. So just implementing an AI tool without training the model of the procurement language is definitely more important.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. So I can think of multiple things. One is definitely the procurement expertise. Second is the internal language which or terminology that a company would have. And yes, it needs to be trained on the right data set so it can fetch the right data and not just, pull out any random, things. So that brings me to a very commonly, asked conflict between humans and AI, that how do you balance automation with human judgment, specifically in critical areas like sourcing decisions, because that impacts the complete production and ultimately the pricing and everything.
I think it's a great question, Deepak, and uh, I hope I'm able to give a great answer to this question as well. Uh, so we use AI and not to flag decisions and not make them, right? And that is some difference that one needs to understand, especially in sourcing. You know, the AI model should be able to flag a decision but not make them for us. For example, if a supplier is flagged for geopolitical risk, for example, or for that matter, the very new tariffs that we have, we still let the category manager decide on what the decision or nuance would be, rather than AI taking up the full use case and providing a solution. So I think we call it AI plus HI, artificial intelligence combined with human intelligence.
That is a really interesting term, AI plus HI. We have something internally that have AI plus BI, that's business intelligence, but I am going to steal it if that's okay with you.
Please do give me the credits and patent rights, okay?
So yeah, I 100% agree with you. AI should give you enough intelligence for you to make that decision. That's the brilliant way you can ensure that it doesn't go haywire. Right.
Yeah. Flag the decision, but don't make the decision for me. Let the human decide. And I think when you let the humans decide, you have solved a lot of problems. Okay, the resistance to AI, the resistance to a lot of things. When the humans are deciding, especially those critical points, and I think it will be a great collaboration between AI and HI.
Yes, definitely. So, if we zoom out a bit, where this is more on the future of procurement, because we have spoken enough on what should be happening and what is happening right now. Where do you see procurement heading in the next 3 to 5 years, especially with AI being a co-pilot?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and I think again, very good question. And I think 3 to 5 years is just a very long time. And I can give you a perspective of, say, maybe next 2 years, right? Procurement will definitely shift from more transactional to more predictive. That is for sure. The way I'm seeing all the organization progressing towards AI and implementing a lot of AI tools within both upstream and downstream, I think it will become more of predictive than transaction. AI will start suggesting demand forecasts. AI might also start negotiating standard contracts. I also foresee AI doing some risk scenarios even before supplier is onboarded. Right. I think I see some of the tools already in the market wherein this risk management is taken care by AI. So I think AI as your procurement analyst will never sleeps. Okay, it will keep on evolving. It will keep on reducing all your manual efforts. It's just that we need to know where do we put it to a correct use and understand where it is driving us the most value.
So I foresee a lot of procurement teams also would need upskilling or need to enhance their knowledge when it comes to AI, so they can make the right
absolutely
decisions.
In fact, this is one of the KPIs within any of my extended teams, that they need to have a AI acumen on understanding what's happening. And I myself bring myself up to speed, and we do have this kind of huddles wherein we go around the room, wherein every week somebody comes up with, hey, I discovered this AI tool.
Nice.
Do you want to try? Or hey, this is something that we've discovered. And it's interesting and fascinating how much of it is there. Sometimes you have the FOMO. Boy, I don't know this. And it's like, we will need to upskill ourselves every day. Change will be the only constant.
Definitely. I think that I'm out of my questions, but two closing ones specifically. One is, what advice would you give to a procurement leader who's just getting started with AI? in practical ways because you have the experience, something that he or she needs to be aware of.
Yeah. I think, one practical advice that I'll give to a leader any day is start small. Start. Begin. I would just advise, okay, start small. But don't wait for you to solve something big problem. Okay, solve something real. Find out what are the loopholes in the system, where your teams are spending a lot of manual efforts. Start small and start something real, and then show the value. Don't wait for the perfect data. Okay, I will clean my data. I will do this, and then I'll start. Don't wait for the perfect data, and don't do it alone. Find your internal champions like IT, operations, finance, who get the tech and want to collaborate with you. Right? It's a win-win for everybody. Once you solve these problems, or smaller problems, but they are very time-consuming. So start it. Begin. I would say start. Start with small. Don't wait for okay. I will save so many $1 billion. No. Even if I'm saving like $100 million or $50 million or $20 million in the next 6 months, start.
As a great advice, what we have seen is a lot of companies and a lot of procurement teams, they are always concerned that whether they would have to dismantle or rip their current setups apart. But that's not always the case. There are solutions that will fit into your current systems to give you the desired output. What is your take on that particular thing?
Yeah. Like I said, every system has problem, some or the other problem. Identify those problems, clean and connect the data. Have those real-time APIs in place. Identify your teams who can work and who are actually forward-thinking. And then users who trust the system, right? And then just have your team who are not pushing back on your future plans. So I think that's, if you try to solve that smaller issues, you'll be able to win bigger problems. Not sure if I answered your question, but yeah, we can revisit if you want.
Partially, but if I have to derive stuff from it, is you can, once you find out what needs to be fixed, you may find out a way to do it without actually disrupting what you are doing currently.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, I'm a good interpreter.
Yeah. I'm just thinking of an example that actually fits into what we can do without disrupting the existing.
That would be great if you can share a story around that.
So I think I can give you an example. Okay. So basically something that is that has a problem. We want to implement an AI solution without disrupting the current. Okay. I can actually give you an example of upstream of procurement on implementing autonomous sourcing solution. Yeah. So I think, one example that I can give is implementing autonomous sourcing. A lot of organizations have global setups. And even if it is not global, if they are just locally, they will have regional and local vendors. Implementing a solution and autonomous sourcing on managing their RFPs, I think that can be done. What will happen is the CSMs would be able to implement the AI solution by using the AI tools as well as also keeping their manual task in place. Give them the liberty to either use the AI model or continue doing the manual way. It will take a little time for them to adopt, but it will not hamper your immediate workarounds. So you cannot have a policy in place, okay, after this point, you will not be using the traditional sourcing way. So you're actually not disrupting their way of working. You're also enabling them to go for a forward-thinking model as well as retaining their traditional way of sourcing. So that's one thing that we can start.
That's a very practical advice because they can compare both at some point and see what really works for them. And if it works brilliantly, you can choose and stick to one of them and maybe.
Yeah. And also it is very important to define that hypercare period, right? Wherein you're implementing a model, but at the same time giving the time for hypercare. So to ensure it is being rightly adopted. take this feedback in place, have a change management in place who is responsible for ensuring the adoption of the tool, ensuring the feedback is regularly taken, and a team who's continuously working on the improvements. It's not that we onboard a vendor to implement your AI solution. It's implemented and it is gone. There is nobody to monitor it.
Right.
Yeah. So scaling up is something, okay, we keep on scaling, but it is also important to keep on retaining the same, as well as understand continuous improvement on it. So it would be a 3-stage process.
Got it. That's a practical one. So the final one, and this is more to for our audiences. Lastly, if someone wants to follow your work, connect with you on this journey, where should they reach out to you?
I think I feel the world is very small, and LinkedIn is a very good place. You can almost find anybody and everybody and mostly every answer. I really do not want to give my personal details here, but I am there on LinkedIn. I would say that I am kind of very active. I at least check LinkedIn twice in a week. So
Yes, yes, I can vouch for that.
I might not be immediate answer, but yeah, I do ensure that I'm spending at least like half an hour on LinkedIn on Saturdays. So that's where they can actually DM me for any questions. So I'd prefer that. I am not on Twitter, so no.
So LinkedIn, it is folks. Well, she's active. That's how we reached out to her and got her for this session for you people. So she's definitely active. Please reach out to her whenever you need any support or guidance for procurement transformation. So Megha, that's all for today's session. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for giving us some practical advices on what can be done when it comes to AI in procurement. And we hope that this does inspire and encourage our audience to do a lot more and follow the amazing stuff that you have done.
Thank you so much, Deepak, for having me here. It has been a pleasure talking to you, and I feel that a knowledge that is not shared, you're not actually giving it back to the society. So it was my pleasure being here and sharing my whatever little knowledge I have on AI and implementation into digital transformation for procurement with all your audiences. I hope they benefit from the same.
Great, Megha. Thank you.
Thanks, Deepak.